The United Kingdom and France are set to ratify a landmark migrant returns treaty, launching a one-in, one-out pilot scheme to curb illegal channel crossings, while the deal allows Britain to return migrants who arrive via small boats in exchange for accepting an equal number of vetted asylum seekers from France with family ties in the UK. With implementation expected within days, officials estimate 50 returns weekly under the initial rollout. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is under growing pressure from Reform UK to stem irregular migration and views the bilateral pact as a strategic shift. French approval follows endorsements from the European Commission and EU member states. While more than 25,000 migrants have crossed by boat this year, the Home Office says the new framework will help dismantle trafficking networks, tighten labor enforcement, and restrict online recruitment tools used by smugglers.
So this is to go after the brazen tactics of organised criminal groups who are involved in the small boats, using Instagram, TikTok, Facebook to advertise and to say, if you pay a certain amount, we'll provide you a safe journey over to the United Kingdom on a small boat. This is going after those individuals. The way the law will be drafted, and it will be brought in as part of the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill, which is currently going through the House, it will have what's called extraterritorial reach. So it will mean that if someone is doing one of these adverts in France and they travel to the United Kingdom, we will be able to deal with them in the United Kingdom. It will be a criminal offence.
And for more on this development, I'm joined by the RISE correspondent Lape, Olarinoye in London. Lape, glad to have you join me.
Angie, good to see you.
Quite some time, yeah, good to see you too. Now, what necessitated this deal?
Well, this has been a long time coming, ND. For years now, previously under the previous government, the Conservative government, the issue of migration has been so pertinent to the not just the electorate, but also the governments at large. It's been a huge part of policy and actually how to draw voters in. And so we know that migration has been at top of that agenda. As a result of that, we've seen the rise of, once again, the far-right parties like the Reform Party, who have challenged a lot of the major parties like the Labour Party and the Tories to start reviewing some of their migration policy. Now, since the previous Tory governments were in power, the migration figures of illegal migrants crossing the known English Channel on these small boats that you can see on your screen has been skyrocketing. In fact, this year, under the new government, under the leadership of Sir Keir Starmer, we've seen north of 25,000 people cross on that very dangerous route into the UK, using the Channel. Of course, that large waterway connects England and France. And so, following Mr. President Macron's visit to the UK last month, this, of course, was top of the agenda. And we've seen this new pilot scheme, if you like, come into play, whereby both countries who have refused to work together in the past are now choosing to work in tandem to really solve what this has become very much a political issue.
What changed this time and for them to work together, and how much pressure is Sir Keir Starmer under?
Well, Keir Starmer is under an immense pressure. So far, his leadership has been scrutinised for how it's been tackling migration, how it's dealt with asylum seekers. Just in the last 2 weeks, Andy, there's been severe amount of protest at hotels where migrants, asylum seekers are usually housed pending the time and that they're settled into different communities. We've seen a lot of people who are on the right side of the political spectrum who feel very strongly about them being housed in hotels across the country, go outside of these hotels and protest. We've seen that happen week after week for the last number of weeks. And so, of course, it's become the center of a political debate. We're seeing the same thing happening in France, actually, where the rise of the right is coming into fore in their political system, in their electoral system. We know that Marine Le Pen, who is a strong far-right leader and politician in France, has also garnered a lot of attention. So the issue of migration has become very much taken center stage for lots of politicians around elections, the kind of narrative around elections, how people are voting. And it's a growing issue across not just Western Europe, but the whole of Europe. We're seeing that happening very frequently. And so for that reason, the kind of collaboration between the two countries can't come anytime sooner. We've seen that, of course, in the past where they've refused to deal with this. They've been kind of passing the baton onto each other, the responsibility with each other, onto who the onus lies with. But this time around, we're seeing that collaboration to use their words, to smash these gangs, the gangs that are taking on vulnerable people, collecting a huge amount of money for them to go on this very treacherous, very dangerous journey to what they, of course, consider safety.
Yeah, now you've talked, yeah, the whole world is reeling, if you like, on this immigration situation. Now you've talked about this gang. Starmer has pledged to smash the gang responsible for the smuggling and reduce the number of arrivals. Has he said how he intends to achieve this?
Well, good question. That is what this pilot scheme is about. It's set to run till 2026 to see how much it impacts the migration, or illegal migration, I might add here, illegal migration numbers. We're told that it's going to be reviewed on a monthly basis, and it will first of all start with the detaining, because now it's a criminal offence to arrive on a boat, the detaining of those migrants. 50 of them every month is the initial figure that's been thrown around. The way in which it's going to work, and to answer your question, is that it will follow this one in, one out system where only migrants, or asylum seekers, should I say, in France who have ties to Britain, who have opted for a legal route, will be considered for entry into the UK. Those, as of today, who use that illegal route, crossing the channel on those boats, will be immediately returned to France. And of course, the French security and border officials will then, of course, deal with them. That, of course, will trigger a deportation back to where they're coming from. But for now, it's going to be somewhat of a swap, whereby the British are sending people who arrive on boats straight back, something that they didn't have the power to do before. And the French are looking at the numbers of asylum seekers they have in their system, and those who have ties back to Britain will be allowed to enter Britain legally, and would, of course, then have their documents and their paperwork scrutinized and their reasons and so on. So it's initially going to work as this one in, one out system. Again, like I say, it's under a pilot scheme. We'll see how much it affects the numbers. It's too early to say how impactful it will be because, as I say, it's only just been announced today, but it will be under a lot of scrutiny from opposition parties, and a lot of scrutiny will come from the wider electorate who want those numbers to go down. They're dealing with quite a significant number. 25,000 have used that route this year alone. So people will be watching, and many stakeholders will be watching very closely how much this new partnership will significantly impact the numbers.
Yeah, you've raised quite a lot of issues there. I hope we'll have the time to trash them. But let's take this anyway. On opposition, critics of the scheme say the scale will not be sufficient to act as a deterrent. That's what the critics are saying. Any idea about the number to be exchanged between both countries? Take those two questions side by side.
Well, very quickly, I know we're running out of time, but so far the number that is being thrown around is that number of 50. It's too early to say how impactful or what the exact figures will look like, because, as I say, since this route has become very popular for smuggling gangs, we've seen a rise this year alone of 25,000 and above. That's the highest it's ever been. So how much numbers or how many transfers between the two countries will be taking place will be very, of course, closely monitored. But in terms of the critics, they're saying that this is not enough to be a deterrent. We've seen over the last 10 to 20 years that desperate migrants who are trying to flee conflict and so on will find more different and creative routes to get to safety. Before, it was the lorry drivers and the trucks that were coming through this same route, but by road. This time it's by sea. So there are concerns as to whether or not another loophole will open for these gangs who are making a killing out of taking on these vulnerable people and getting them to a different location. So far, the critics are skeptical. The opposition, who of course tried the Rwanda scheme, tried to move people back to a third safe country. Of course, that didn't work. Are very much going to scrutinize and will be very skeptical of whether this will work or not.
All right, thank you so much. Lape there, Arise News correspondent in London.